Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
And I work at this top consulting firm, and my client is the Pentagon. So I'm embedded in the Pentagon. I work in the Joint Staff, which is the top military command. When she lost, I went into the intelligence community and I became an FBI special agent. So I became a spy hunter. So I was a counterintelligence agent, special agent at the FBI.
What's your overall assessment of Trump?
He's a sociopathic narcissist who is only interested in advancing his name, his wealth, and his fame.
Is there anything you can do to protect American people from the stuff that he might try to do?
I'm in conversation with a couple of retired generals to try to explore what we can do.
Who were the retired generals that you were going to talk to?
They're like 1, 2, or 3 star generals and admirals. You probably know maybe 4 stars. So I also have a big day tomorrow, probably the biggest day of all. So we have this huge meeting with military leaders in a very secure room called the Tank.
Ooh.
So we have a tank meeting with all of the top leaders in the United States military tomorrow on my topic that I prepared.
So it went well?
I think it went well. It's very sensitive information. We're going to have to keep it between us. I specialize in artificial intelligence and emerging technologies like quantum, cybersecurity. Yeah.
What's quantum? I haven't heard of it.
Quantum is incredibly fast supercomputing that doesn't yet exist but will soon exist, and when it does, it will change everything.
Hegseth.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Secretary of Defense. He's cheated on all of his wives, all of his girlfriends. He's had some sexual assault allegations. He's an alcoholic. There's a lot of observations of him drinking. You're not a spy. You're not trying to
American generals are conspiring against the new president. Just a hint of the challenges that we Americans face as Mr. Donald Trump, comes back into the government and his team takes their place. Welcome back to Whistleblower Wednesday. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube, RX Spaces simulcast, and Truth Social Plus. Worldview Tube's live stream is over there 24 hours a day on Truth Social Plus, so please check it out. You just heard it. James O'Keefe's O'Keefe Media Group, or OMG for short, captured that video. It's another seemingly crazy story about what could be seditious conspiracy among some generals and admirals, frankly. Unfortunately, based on what we learned over the last 9 years, it's not so crazy this time, even though it kind of sounds like it. This also could explain why the swamp is so afraid of Pete Hegseth and his incoming team. They're going to keep pushing back, folks, and this undercover story out of OMG just confirms that. Pay attention to these clips, though. This guy's just a contractor, but he does have some access at the highest levels, and we'll talk about why I know that, to some of the most senior personnel in the Pentagon, as his description and presentation in a tank briefing indicates. We've also got an update on the Las Vegas Cybertruck bombing that I covered last week with Matt Tardio, and it's going to blow your mind. My guest today to discuss all these challenges America faces in this really crucial period of the Trump administration and our country's life and beyond, because this is important beyond the Trump administration. Former U.S. Navy Seabee, friend of mine, retired firefighter and first responder, Trump Veterans Coalition member and leader and surrogate, along with myself, and GOP political activist, the one and only, I'm fired up, Chad Caton. And man, Chad, is there a lot to talk about, man? Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's been too long.
Well, I appreciate coming back on with you, Colonel. I feel like I'm in the worst dream ever, but it's like it feels good. Is that weird? That's kind of where I'm at right now. I just don't understand exactly how I'm supposed to go. And maybe we'll make some people upset today, or we might give some perspective. Either way, you've got huge brass ones for bringing me on. I appreciate you.
Hey, you probably heard a little bit of my show yesterday. The Democrats really screwed up in that hearing. Okay, if they had really, truly, real policy concerns, and look, I know the case pretty well. There are a couple that they should have legitimately had. They blew it, and that's a problem. That's not exactly what we're here to talk about today, but it's kind of tangentially related. That's why I left that piece in that opening clip about the incoming Secretary of Defense, and I'm predicting he's going to get confirmed now based on the performance yesterday of the Democrats.
Sure.
But the issue that I want to talk about and ferret out over these next three segments, and then we'll do the update on the Master Sergeant Leibelsberger's Cybertruck bombing in Vegas. And that is, I like James O'Keefe. I'm a fan of his. Matter of fact, I donate personal funds to his stuff to keep him alive because I think it's important. I've known about him for a long time, don't know him personally. But this release is important for a couple of reasons, because as a couple of old military guys, and I just happen to work on the Joint Staff, and I'm one of the few majors that's ever gotten to give a briefing in that room called the tank. It was my understanding of what I was told when I was allowed to give it. So I'm very familiar with where this individual that's in this this trap, that I'm going to call it what it is in a second, is at, and where he may be coming from, the importance of maybe what he says, or maybe the unimportance. And that's kind of what I wanted to get at. In the pre-show, somebody asked me a question if I was concerned about vetting and stuff like that for whistleblowers. Absolutely, I am. Absolutely. That's another reason I wanted us to talk about this particular stream, because I'm glad James caught it and put it out. But here's the first question I have. It's a honeypot trap, Chad. Honeypot traps, are they reliable, or do you have to be very self-aware and nuanced in the information you're able to glean from a honeypot trap?
I think the honeypot trap is the precursor to a problem, correct? So when somebody's in the honeypot, it's telling me, okay, you're weak of character. Your initial reasoning to find yourself in a sexual liaison based off of information that you may be privy to is a national security problem, and it's something that I'm well aware of. And us as men are stupid animals, and we have a tendency to screw that up. But it's good when the honeypot is exposed, like James O'Keefe does, because at the very least, on the spectrum, this particular gentleman is a problem. And this problem needs to be dealt with, investigated, and the higher ups need to do the right thing based off of our own national security. So the honeypot, I think, is something that can be used against people for, blackmail or extortion. But at the same time, when it's found like James O'Keefe did, it's definitely shows you there's a bigger problem that needs to be investigated by the powers that be.
Yeah, and when you have that character flaw, which men are dogs. I'll just say it, okay? They're dogs. The male species genetically are dogs. I'm going to say it a couple of times just to make the point. But
or is it because on the show?
If you have an overabundance of that genetic strain in your system, you're highly susceptible to a honey trap, which results in blackmail, right? Yeah,
and extortion.
I think I captured that well.
You did.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing with this guy, I wanted to get your take on. So we're in agreement there. is how reliable do you think he is? He's a contractor for Booz Allen.
Well, we know contractor life, right? I can go in so many
There's
different
a reason
directions.
I brought Chad on this show, folks, because he is very clear when he says has his opinion. But it's important for people to understand that this is just two guys that understand the military side of this issue pretty well. So go ahead, fire away, Chad.
Contractors are usually a lot loose, or very loose with a lot, because they don't have a government over their head overtly, right? They are working for a corporation, and that corporation has, their secret clearances that are given to them by the government. But I think I have to come back to my original statement. It was essentially based on this being a lowly contractor. This lowly contractor, and there's great contractors out there. We need them. I'm not taking away from that. But to the extremes of national security, this definitely is something that needs to be investigated. And at the very least, if the company he works for, their security clearances should be re-looked at with some SF-86s and maybe really dive back into it, because we have to constantly look at our assets out there that are carrying those secret clearances or top secret clearances, what have you. And we have to constantly be monitoring those, because things happen. People get in financial situations. There's drinking. There's the honeypot. There's, I got to get out there and put some money on the ponies. There's the mob. There's a lot of things that we need to continue to look at with anybody carrying a secret clearance. And this one obviously was looking to honeypot. I guess I'm keeping it Christian because I'm afraid Candy's listening.
She's not listening. She's at work on the CB base, as a matter of fact.
Hoorah.
So just so folks understand that may not be aware, because not everybody in my audience comes in and has been in it every day. A honeypot trap is commonly used by especially foreign intelligence services, ours or theirs, on our targets, to use, in this case, a woman, a beautiful young woman, is gone out on a date with this guy. That's the honeypot trap right there. It can be used against homosexuals, too. O'Keefe has demonstrated that in a previous, I think the last release he did was a gay guy on a date with a gay guy. So, it's not just men and women, but the men that are on the hunt are the dogs that I was talking about. So He works for Booz Allen. I'm not trying to get Booz Allen in trouble, but I'm just saying the facts, and these are facts. But he's also a lefty. If you go and Shell, if you'll put James O'Keefe's 19-plus minute video in the nest for folks, I'd appreciate it. That's where this comes from. He talks about his background, where he met Hillary Clinton at university and really loved her, and it's just disgustingly stomach-sickening, slobbering over the left. So he's a lefty. Should we look at people's political ideologies in our security clearance process yet? Because I'm gonna get to why I'm asking that question, Chad. But we never did that when I was in the military. I had the highest level clearance you could have in the land for many, many years, and nobody ever asked me what political party I was a member of. I wouldn't have answered it anyway as long as I was in uniform.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question, and things have changed. Colonel, we're great friends. I don't want to even pretend how old you are, and how secret clearances happened back with Horse and Buggy. But I will say this: it comes down to the concept of we have to continuously look at our national security, right? And the world has changed to something that is extremely divided. There's no way around it. Unification is a word that's probably going to be taken out of Webster's dictionary because we are so divided. I can point that out, as you did in your monologue, to the questions that were brought by the Democrats against Pete Hegseth. A lot of them were valid, and I have issues with in regards to national security. But they're so inept and feckless, they can't get past their own ideology and screaming. They just came across as the complete. I'm trying not to use words that I like to use, but they're just an abortion. I mean, the Democratic Party is an outright abortion. I mean, they have real stuff to talk about with Pete, and they blew it by talking about women in combat. talk about tone and tenor and not understanding the room or reading the room. The Democrats have completely lost their mind, and we are divided. So yes, when it comes to your national security or your clearances, I think, and I wouldn't answer either, although, I mean, it's not hard to go to my Twitter and see where I stand, but nonetheless, I think that's something that needs to be looked at, because essentially our governments, as they take over in the as Trump takes over from the Democrats, we're looking at it as it is. I mean, Trump's already saying, I'm firing all these people because I can't trust them because of ideology and very, very hardcore embedded political bias. We see it in our media. It would be silly of us to not think it's in our national security and top secret clearances.
All right, we got to take a commercial break to pay for this thing. But when we come back, we'll see a little bit more of this clip. We're going to see a little bit of this tape that O'Keefe put out throughout the next two segments. But the generals are really conspiring. I think it sounds like seditious conspiracy, according to what some people were convicted of against the United States based on January 6, 2021. We'll be right back with Chad Caton. It's Whistleblower Wednesday here on the Rob Maness Show at Worldview Tube.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at WVWFoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Our undercover reporter asked about how the meeting inside the tank at the Pentagon went.
So it went well. Were there?
I think it went well. It's very sensitive information. We're gonna have to keep it between us. And then you're gonna go blog it.
I threw away the key.
Guess what this guy told me? Just so that we overclassify, and I think I may have said this to you during dinner, that we overclassify information. So when we overclassify information, it doesn't allow us to actually, communicate effectively when we're actually trying to implement some sort of operation, right? So if we're playing a team sport and we're both like representing a part of the field, right? And we both have different pieces of information as to how we're going to do our job to play the game and win. But we're not coordinating because we don't tell each other the need to know information.
Yeah.
And then the second one was, the enemy is, we're not the only ones using science. So the enemy is using science too. You're not a spy, you're not trying to collect information from me.
I wish I was. That'd be cool.
Well, with me, literally with a former FBI agent, so you're gonna be safe.
Jamie Menina reveals he has been working with 2-, 3-, and 4-star generals to see what they can do about President Trump's upcoming term.
Who were the retired generals that you were going to talk to?
Well, there's many of them, but this Rear Admiral, I know there is a Major General in the Army, so those are the two that I talked to the most, but yeah, I talked to quite a few.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday. It sounds like we have a hotbed of seditious conspiracy amongst Army and Navy generals and admirals. It sounds like, according to Mr. Menina there, and my guest today is the one and only, I'm fired up, Chad Caton, who is a great friend of mine. I have to be transparent about that, Chad. Now look, from here's my take, and then I'll let you go at this guy, Mr. Menina. By the way, a little just a suggestion for Mr. O'Keefe. You should put that he's a contractor on the video. That in addition to being this, whatever he called himself, senior advisor to the Joint Staff. All right, he says he gave a briefing in the tank. I mentioned that I was one of the very few majors to be allowed to give a briefing in the tank, and it wasn't even to the most senior 4-stars. It was to the next level down. But the tank is actually a highly classified information area. And here's where this guy's credibility is in question. It's either that or he's completely entrapped by this honeypot, and it may be a combination of both, but there's a couple of things that I have credibility concerns with him is, yes, he understands the tank. He was working on AI and quantum computing, and I've never heard of a civilian contractor type giving a briefing in the tank like that. Usually it's a uniformed person with support from those kind of people that's doing it. But he's discussing things like we compartmentalize classified information. We're not all talking to each other, kind of implying that they're going to use AI or pitch in AI to allow the senior leadership to be able to see the whole battlefield, the whole playing field. So to talk about even what he said, what was being discussed, is classified information. That's number one. As I've said, I briefed in it. You've never heard me talk about the subject or even who the players were, besides me, because I'm not going to do that. I shouldn't ever do that, and this was years ago. So that's number one. Number two, he says he's an FBI special agent, counterintelligence, spy hunter, and I think he was in the FBI for like 15 months. Now, I'm tracking on Kyle Serafin's post on this. I'm going to see if I can get Kyle on for a show here one day in the near future to pick that apart, because that doesn't seem like a real long time, and he might have left pretty quickly. That usually doesn't bode well for your professional resume. That doesn't, Chad. And then the third thing, now this is the part where he does have some credibility, because 1, 2, and 3 stars in the Pentagon are a dime a frickin' dozen. Okay, and he doesn't brag that he got to do a lot of interaction with 4 stars, although he mentions it. But he does talk about these 1, 2, and 3 star retired people, and that, where does he work? Booz Allen. Folks, ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the big consulting contractors for DOD that hires ex-military people in these specialties like this guy is to come in and do work for the Department of Defense and the services and those kind of things. And guess who they like to hire the most? Retired 1, 2, and 3 star. So he probably is hanging out with a lot of those guys. And it wouldn't surprise me if this crowd that's just retiring is in that crowd that's talking about how do we protect people that are still in from Donald Trump. Your take, Chad?
Oh, thank you for that, asking that question, I guess. This guy is a cosplay tough guy. This guy uses his contract. I'm calling it right now. This guy might bring coffee to a 3-star and might work at this particular place, but this guy's cosplaying all day so that he can do some smoochy. I mean, this guy is every bit of a cosplay actor, and he talks in generalities. Everything that he's speaking to, good for him if he does carry a secret clearance, because he's keeping it in those generalities. So he's not giving up anything specifically. But I've known you for a long time. We have traveled in many different places, and we've never talked about the tank. I happen to travel around often with the biggest spy we've ever known in General Michael Flynn. That's not how these people talk. They don't talk like this because of their necessity. And the ones that can get caught up in the honeypot, I think, would be a little bit more mysterious. He's trying to be 007 in a cardigan, but really it's just cosplay and sad, hoping that this young lady will bite in some way or another and play out some Mission Impossible type scenario fantasy. It's really pathetic. I'm glad that he did it. And if he does work for this particular company, again, I come back to my original statement where this guy needs to be put in a very small room with one light and 2 guys in black suits talking to him about his security clearance, because it's just elementary. You know, when you're around spooks, you can kind of tell, right? You can get what they're saying. And Kyle Serafin, a friend of both of ours, he's fantastic at it. He actually uses humor like I do, and kind of makes it nonchalant when he's talking about intel and the things that he knows. This guy is just praying to God he doesn't have to take this girl to another Washington, D.C. coffee house, spend $9 on a Frappafruto, and try to close the deal. It just looks weak. And I'm calling it right now as I see it. I think this guy is a cosplay chess player, formerly of the AV Club at his own high school, wants to be a football player, couldn't make it, and he's trying to be Mission Impossible. It's just weak. It's very weak, and I hope it never ever works for him. Frankly.
Yeah, and I think, and I think you capture it well. And look, I'm not criticizing James O'Keefe. I want him to do this kind of stuff. Trust me, because if you're going to see in the next clip that there is a certain credibility to this gentleman. Okay, and it's not proven by Mr. O'Keefe. It's not proven by the Colonel. It's not proven by CB Chad or political operative Rob Maness or Chad Caton. It's proven by an external actor that's used to be highly credible when I worked for him, but it's as credible as you can still get. Are you concerned at all with this discussion about the generals, to get back to a serious nature? I mean, the one slice of credibility is what I'm concerned about. And we'll talk more about this in the next segment too, after we find out how much credibility he really has. But I just, do you think we're going to see more of the same? The resistance thing under the first Trump administration, it took about 10 days to really go full throttle. That's all. 10 days. You
I think
ended
you're
up with the Vindemans and all that stuff. Do you think we're going to see that this time?
Vindeman was president of the AV Club. Wow, what a terrible person. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of it. This is part of my issue with the Pete Hegseth, right? I support the president, you know that. I work for him, whatever. But I also look at things militarily and look at it strategically based on our national security. Again, I come back to that. And you and I have spoke about the Pentagon and all of its caveats and little corners in the world that they can hide, and that they can very, very easily undermine the Secretary of Defense, which in part is undermining the President of the United States. So I'm worried about that and not understanding the Pentagon like somebody like yourself, Secretary Wilkie, could. And I think that's an important caveat to our Secretary of Defense, which is why I'm questioning on Pete Hegseth. But at the same time, I don't think for a second that there aren't generals and high-ranking officers that are hid out in a small shop there in the Pentagon that are already setting up roadblocks or speed bumps in order to get in the way of Donald J. Trump. It's a big machine, and it's going to take something and somebody very intelligent how to maneuver through that place. And when we come back from it, I have a great story that General Flynn told me once about the Pentagon that I think you can attest to, and it kind of puts my words into something more manageable to understand. You
mean you're not manageable, Chad? Come on.
Nope. No. I'm slowing down though. Yeah. By the way, and me and Martin Luther King, we're standing out here for the world to see, and I'm slowing down, but I just begun. So yeah, I'm not manageable, but someday I will.
Someday I'll get you to wear a tie on my show, just to show Candy a still picture of it.
I'll be within a tuxedo with Candy. Have that picture and put it in her wall.
So you're exactly right. I look forward to hearing that story that General Flynn told you, because he's the ultimate military spy that we have, and I think he and I pretty much treat classified information and information in general very similarly, from what I've heard. When we come back, though, we'll see that there's still a little bit of credibility, and this gentleman does have some credibility, and it's about the subject that we were just talking about. And we'll continue this discussion, and we'll hear that story that General Flynn told Chad. Here on the Rob Maness Show, it's Whistleblower Wednesday. Beware the honeypot, gentlemen. Beware the honeypot, because if there's anything out there, it's going to be that, and they're coming for you. We'll be right back.
This just in, Jamie Menina, the top advisor to the Joint Chief of Staff at the Pentagon, has been terminated. This from Joseph R. Holstead, Joint Staff Public Affairs at the Pentagon. Quote, the alleged comments by Menina do not reflect the positions of the chairman or the Joint Staff. Furthermore, the chairman looks forward to working as President-elect Donald J. Trump, principal military advisor in the next administration. We caught up on the phone with Joseph R. Holstead. Here's more of what he had to say.
He is currently at Booz Allen. He is not at the Joint Staff.
Now, Holstead went on to confirm that Menina indeed was an advisor to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The Pentagon was, meaning a day or two ago.
Did he ever work in the Joint Staff?
Yes, he did.
When questioned if Menina had been terminated due to OMG's undercover investigation, Holstead responded, yeah, that's a standard practice with contractors, referring to Menina contracting with Booz Allen Hamilton.
And because of this investigation, was he terminated, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's the standard practice with contractors. This is obviously someone speaking out of turn and falsely in public. Obviously you don't, first of all, lie, and then also, leave in further falsehoods, and so.
This termination comes just on the heels of our video report you saw today of Menina talking that he was working with retired generals about efforts regarding Trump after Trump's inauguration this coming weekend. As always, if you're a source inside the government, we look to hear from you. If you know fraud, waste, or abuse, of which there is a lot of that, we want to hear from you. Tips at O'KeefeMediaGroup.com, 914-491-9395 on our signal. Stay tuned to my interaction with Joseph Menina tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday. My guest is I'm Fired Up host Chad Caton, and also a GOP political expert, really, in my opinion. I've known him for quite a while now, and his knowledge of Republican politics, especially in his home state of South Carolina, is incredible. And Chad, there's the credibility. The PAO for the Joint Staff itself confirmed that he did work on the Joint Staff. Yes, he was a contractor, but he did work on the Joint Staff. And that they terminated him for this investigation, which is why I keep saying this is not a criticism of OMG or Mr. O'Keefe. I want them to keep doing this because people like that shouldn't be anywhere near even the rooms of power, let alone the levers of power or classified information. Right, Chad?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And kudos to James O'Keefe. I'm a huge fan. Who knew he was such a dancer? He's a very good dancer. I've seen him in different functions at UTP USA and whatnot. He's a triple threat. And he did a great job here. And the reason why is it's bringing to the American people the sensitivity of our national security. And he could have been the coffee boy at the Joint Chiefs for this particular contractor. Waste, fraud, and abuse is huge with contractors, and we don't know his particular job. He did say that he worked with the Joint Chiefs. So, I mean, I can say that I work with General Flynn, but I don't know a secret other than he doesn't like dinner and he loves dessert. So that's about it, right? But this shows the national security problem that our system is supposed to find out and eradicate. And I'm glad that they did the same thing. I thought it was interesting with the PIO, though, when they said he kind of tripped over false claims and all that. Like, he wasn't real sure, right? He was kind of like, he shouldn't be talking one, and then especially putting out false claims. Maybe it's not. I don't know, kind of putting it out there. So I thought that was interesting. That's what happens when you get a spook who really doesn't have an answer. They don't know how to go about it, and it always makes me laugh being understanding what the nuance, if you will. So yeah, I'm glad it happened the way it did, and did a good job with O'Keefe.
Yeah, but the system should catch that kind of stuff. And this type of individual. So tell us your story. What General Flynn told you about the anecdote you were talking about in the last segment.
Sure. And, you know, you and I have talked about this because the Pentagon is a sketchy building. There is a lot of power and influence in that building, major operations. And just walking into the Pentagon, for anybody that's ever done it, especially in a specific role, if you're in uniform, you feel that heavy. Okay, you feel that gravitas of this building, and General Flynn, when we were talking about working at the Pentagon, and he goes, you know, this is the best way I can explain the Pentagon. I had a captain in the Navy, and for those of you that don't know, captains are a very high-ranking position. They're the ones that are in charge of ships usually, and command. And he said, I took a captain who was actually up for admiral, and I gave him one job when I was at DNI. He came onto my staff, and I said, I need you. And his job was solely to get General Flynn to the right office on time in the Pentagon. That was his only job. That was his only job. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like major abuse for a captain. He goes, you have to work in the Pentagon long enough to be a captain to be able to understand where you're going in that building, because it's just the way it's set up. It is that building. You can work in the Pentagon for 20 years and never see somebody. It's just what it is. And that was really heavy to me when you, again, understanding the gravitas of the building, but at the same time, in its simplicity for Mom Pa Kettle at home, you know, to take a guy that's getting ready to go up for admiral, and his job is to make sure the head of DNI gets to the right office on time with all of the caveats and hallways and what you got to get through to get to, because there's inside of security there. So I think that kind of explains that heaviness that is the Pentagon. And another reason why I have questions in regards to Pete Hegseth, because there are way more powerful people in that building than Pete Hegseth will be, if that's a fair statement. And he needs to know how to protect himself from that, and by proxy, the President of the United States.
You know, maybe he should hire a guy like you whose sole job is to clear the landmines that are coming at him even from behind his back 24/7 especially while he's in that building, though, just to walk around with him and all that stuff. But yeah, I get that. You're right. Look, by the time I left, I was only there for 28 months. He's available, Secretary Hegseth, or future Secretary Hegseth. I don't want to get out in front of President Trump. So yeah, by the time I left there in 28 months, I could get anywhere in the building within 5 minutes accurately and on time, no matter what. And it's a 22,000 human being type office building. It's if it was a skyscraper, it'd be very tall. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I mean, that's half the battle right there. And then decoding the staffs and who does what. And you know, the most powerful individual in the most powerful room that I ever went into was never in those pretty outer offices on the E-ring where the secretaries sit and the chairman and all the generals and all that stuff. No, it was always in the dark, barely lit room with some guy or gal in a quiet tone of voice, briefing from a piece of paper on the table. The person that had the most power I ever dealt with. And that is actually, yeah, that's an actual description. So we got hands up in the audience. I've been remiss. I missed one in the last segment. Let me go ahead and take some hands, Chad, and get you some questions to you. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Al, sir.
Hey, sir, thank you very much again. So that same guy, the superhero, I guess, super spooky guy, he was busted, and I think the reason he exited the FBI or got fired back in 2021 on child, it was, I guess, he was trying to hook up with an underage girl.
You have a question for the Colonel, Al?
No, I just wanted to highlight that same guy, that like he's got a disturbing history, and I don't know why he kept his clearance anyway.
Yeah, that's a great, was it child molestation or pedophilia or something like that, Al? You kind of broke up when you said what the charge was.
Yeah, it was child molesting.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah. That's very interesting, Chad, isn't it? It's my understanding that Epstein's client list is going to be released unless they're minors or somebody that's cooperating witness.
Do you ever think,
from what Cam Bondi just said?
Do you ever worry about maybe
What's
the
that?
plumber that had to be on that plane to go to the island to do some work, and he's like, shit, I don't want to be on that list. I didn't know anything. I just went there to change out a toilet, that's the kind of stuff I worry about, some poor fella need to go to the island to do some work. I don't know. But I'm sad that we have to laugh that this guy comes out that he, in fact, was arrested for molestation. It's kind of par for the course for this administration.
Well, and it gets back to that security clearance process issue. We've got some problems. If that can get past the security clearance and this individual can even walk into the doorway of the tank, okay, then that's a major problem that's got to be fixed. And this incoming team that future Secretary Pete Hegseth is putting together has got to be able to address that and address it fast, or the retired generals that are conspiring to trip up the president, guys like this. You heard him rattle off all the things the Democrats rattled off yesterday about the incoming secretary. So they're all thinking about it, and they're grinding their gears in their little brains on how they can take advantage of it, and at the same time stop our policies from being implemented. And having a lax security clearance process that would allow this guy into the tank, that's a major problem, isn't it?
It is, and I would be remiss to not, because you know me, I can't stand being hypocritical, but it goes to the same thing with Pete Hegseth admitting that he was blackmailed and entrapped, or not entrapped, I'm sorry, extorted. You and I both carried clearances, and that would have been a no-go for us at certain security levels. I hope we can get past that. It's something that bothers me, and I've had MAGA come at me crazy, but I'm not in a tribe. I'm about national security and what's necessary. And it also kind of sucks for the people that have to do their national security, and if they say that they were blackmailed or extorted and part of their SF-86, they would be automatically disqualified. It's unfortunate that, again, me being an enlisted guy and you being one of those hoity-toity officers, you guys seem to take care of each other and get to do whatever you want, but we're the ones with our thumb on our forehead, and we have to live for a higher standard when we don't have the brass on our shirt. It bothers me. I think we can get past it. I hope we get past it, but I would be remiss to not speak it outwardly and have a problem with it as a former person involved in our U.S. military, somebody that has studied geopolitics and been involved in the intel society and learned about it and know about it. It's that hypocrisy that I don't like, but the good part about Pete is he is a soldier, and I think he'll bring people around. But I have my reservations, and I have to just believe that Donald Trump is making the right choice.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me
the feedback that I'm getting.
Yeah, I sound fantastic.
Whoever's got that audio running, cut it, Shell. So Chad, you're right. Look, I think he gets it. He's going to have to put the right precautions in place and take the right precautions and everything. And the best thing he could do is make sure somebody is fixing this security clearance process and emptying that building of anybody, even a contractor, that is opposed to implementing the President of the United States lawful orders going in based on political reasons. And I think that question has to be asked in today's environment. Unfortunately, I abhor it, but I do think it has to be asked during this time of transition because of that. He doesn't need hidden landmines waiting for either him or the president or anybody else on his team that they're constantly having to step around or defuse, which we use in EOD parlance. We've got to take this last break. When we come back, we're going to hear a clip from Green Beret Master Sergeant Matthew Leibelsberger's wife, Jennifer Davis, on the Matt Tardeo Show. He interviewed her based on her statement she put out that blows out of the water a lot of the stuff the government's actually been putting out about this guy. So we'll be right back with an update on the Cybertruck bombing in Vegas with Chad Caton here on Whistleblower Wednesday.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com. Worldviewtalk.com.
Was coming home for Christmas, and I was talking to you before this, and it sounded like you were excited, and he was excited, and everything was looking up for Christmas.
Yeah, we were so excited for our family to be reunited for our very first Christmas together. Matt's behavior was on point. He was super excited to be home. Leading up to him leaving Germany to come home, he couldn't stop talking about it. Was so excited to, see how big his daughter had gotten. This is the shock factor for me because there were no signs of any of this. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's excited to come home. You guys have spent some time apart so that you could help get care for your daughter and stuff while he's busy being the tip of the spear for the United States military.
Yeah.
And it's just much forward looking to vacation time. Did you categorize him as a good father, like great dad, happy, loving?
Yeah, he was an incredible husband and father, very hands-on. He had a heart of gold.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when you're coming home, it's like, it doesn't matter what's in the way. Like, it's getting out of the way and you're coming home to see your child, and the excitement over that is just, it's hard to explain. It really is.
Yeah.
How was he when he got home, and your time with him when he got home, leading up to Christmas?
Yeah, it was amazing. One thing that Matt wanted to do while he was home was get an Airbnb up in Breckenridge. He wanted to do that for a few reasons. One, he wanted our family to be able to just go do something fun together. But he also made plans with a Navy SEAL to meet him in Breckenridge to get some free drones to take back to Germany. So he booked us a really cool Airbnb up there, and he was just really excited, not only for the Airbnb, but for the drone piece as well. And we had a fabulous Christmas. It was really nice. We spent it with my family. And then even on the morning of the 26th, Matt made me breakfast in bed.
Welcome back to the Rob Mader Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and that was Matt Tardio's interview with Jennifer Davis. She is the wife and the widow of Green Beret U.S. Army Master Sergeant Matthew Leibelsberger, who did do the Cybertruck bombing at Trump Tower in Las Vegas on New Year's Day. And there's I wanted to play that. He got the interview. He got a statement from her and everything. That little clip there is thematic of her entire interview. And Shell has put that in the nest in the space, and we've lost the space, guys. We'll try to reconnect it for the after show here because we're running short on time. But I wanted to get this out there and update you because we did a show with Matt Tardio last week where we went over everything that we knew then about this. And Chad Caton is my guest today. Chad, you're a veteran too. We're all very familiar with PTSD, with family problems and all that. But, a couple things have happened on this, and Jennifer came out publicly because of them. One is the Army PAO somewhere speculated that the baby's DNA didn't match the body in the truck publicly, and then two, that an unknown law enforcement contact says in a Newsweek article, and now Newsweek, whether you like them or not, they still have some media credibility left to them. In a Newsweek article, this unnamed source, law enforcement source, says they were having marital problems. And Jennifer goes on, you could hear her describe it there. No, they loved each other very much. They were ecstatic about it. He made her breakfast in bed on the 26th of December. I mean, he loved his child, etc. And they had no fight. And there's been reporting out there that they had a fight and she kicked him out. So we put that the total interview into the Nest, guys. Go watch it. Take the time to watch that. It's heartbreaking, but I got to give former Green Beret and law enforcement officer Matt Tardio big kudos for the compassion, the empathy that he used with Ms. Davis. And at the same time, he asked the hard questions. He asked the hard questions that she was willing to try to answer, but he did it in such a way that made it it's just a really classy interview. And I'm so glad he was able to, she was able to get the story out there, because it just adds to the concerns that I have about this particular situation, Chad. I was in EOD, so I'm very familiar with evidence and the devices and those kind of things and tactics. And I'd already been saying just a lot of things don't match up with this guy's experience, his service. And now this kind of obliterates the story. It does obliterate the story part about marital problems that drove him out of the house. Your thoughts on it? I just wanted to give my audience this update to let them know this is out there and chat a little bit about it.
I'm not, look, I'm a glasses half empty guy. I'm working on it. I got therapists and stuff, but I don't know necessarily that the marital is okay. Who wants to speak ill will of the dead? I just had somebody that has politically came after me for 10 years and she died, and I wish God takes her in. And it's hard to speak of those that are gone, but there's so many questions to this, and she brings them up. Other people bring them up. His guys that served with him bring it up. And what I can't stand about this is that we're gonna shoot hyperbole all over the place, and at the end of the day, because of the intel world that we live in, which is good, for good or bad, the world is realizing how very complicated the deep state is and our intel world is. And, there's a whole bunch of this that doesn't make sense, but I also see people going off on tangents to, what I think is wrong. One, they said he was dead before he detonated the bomb. You could do that, and you're EOD, you know that as well as I do. But also, it looked like a fireball hit him, not the explosion. And you can see if you really move in, he's moving around during the fire. I think it hurt like hell, and he killed himself. And that is something that makes a lot of sense to me. But those are the little nuances that we're trying to pick apart. But things like this, and Matt did a phenomenal job in this interview, and it was a very skinny goalpost with a very hurt woman. And I thought he did a great job. But unfortunately, in these, just like the Vegas shooting and so many other issues that just don't make sense, our friend Matt Couch has been drugged through the glass of hell because of the Vegas shooting and the things that he's brought out. We need to keep moving in that direction. But ultimately, I'm of that person that will realize that we'll probably never really get an answer. And I hate that. I hate that for the family, and I hate that for his buddies, his battle buddies, and the service he had to this country. But I'll get in the same camp as you that this doesn't make sense, and it should be investigated, and the people deserve to know.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest reason originally, and the things that you talked about being speculated about, those discussions were had, and then because Sean Ryan and Sam Shoemate put that initial email out, the FBI and the law enforcement officials were forced to actually tell us what they had, and then that confirmed that, yeah, it was him in the truck. You could see the videos. I showed them last week, the video and the stills of him moving his hands in the truck and those kind of things. Still a lot of questions, though. But this is the one that just bugged me. He's an 18-year Green Beret. He's been doing this for has a new marriage that the community was telling me they loved each other very much, but then this public reporting was, no, they had a fight and they broke up, etc. She kicked him out of the house. That whole scenario is now completely gone, because I recommend everybody go listen to Jennifer's interview with Tardio, post her release, and get a copy of her release. I think he put it out earlier, a few days ago, before he released the full interview of her statement. And you see it so much. So my concern is, and I think the concern of the Green Beret community especially, is that we've never had a guy like this turn this way at this stage of their professional life with this personal thing. Yeah, so he may have had PTSD. PTSD in and of itself doesn't generally drive you to suicide, though. It's mainly caused by external factors, way beyond that. That does that, and those factors don't seem to be here, other than the surveillance log that we know about, and we don't know about everything. They've obviously held some pages back, and she talks about some of the things that he wrote about her and the baby in that 6-page document that came out later. So yeah, that's what I'm concerned about. Is do we have a bigger problem than just this one-off individual out there? Because if we do, I mean, these are the pipe hitters. You know,
I believe we do. I believe we do. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but my biggest issue is the bomb itself. A Green Beret is not going to use fireworks and racing fuel for the when they showed the back of it. And I'm familiar with racing fuel. I mean, I live in South Carolina. We'll race anything, and go giddy. But the fact that you had the racing fuel fuel in the can that racing fuel comes in, that thing is very safe based on heat and all of that. And a Green Beret would know that. I mean, if he was going to use the fireworks, you would think that he would have, some of that tungsten would have got close to, possibly putting that racing fuel in 5 or gallon milk jugs. That would make more sense to me, because the flashpoint is so much greater. And a Green Beret, and I'm being a CB and I breached some doors and played with some cool stuff. A Green Beret just seems like they would have came up with a better type of bomb than the one that was sparkled out there in front of the Trump Hotel. So much doesn't make sense to me. But when they showed the picture of his back of his truck and that racing fuel was still in the VR1 canister that racing fuel comes in, I mean, they've made that very safe. Rednecks put that in the back of their truck and race with it in the car. So, I mean, they understand that they need to make that's very high flashpoint. It just didn't make sense. And then now here with Tardio and his wife, and again, I don't know that we're ever going to get that answer, but I think that we would have to go on the further end of the spectrum, as you brought up, that we need to look at this, because I believe it could be the doorstep to a bigger problem, just like your whistleblower in the honeypot today. It's something that needs to be investigated as far as we can, for sure.
Yeah, I liken it to the problem we didn't address with the jihadi that killed my friend Major Greg Stone on night 1 of Iraqi freedom. Before they went in and crossed the line in country, or Major Hassan, the Army major that Soldier for Allah is on his card, SJA, on his business card, that went into Fort Hood and killed a bunch of people that were getting ready to deploy. We didn't address that, and now we got Jabbar in New Orleans. He fits the classic pattern, though. Yep. The only thing I'm concerned about that is that we haven't really looked at that problem, because the got the damn service all on this tangent of white supremacists and pro-life organizations being
don't forget
people going to school board meetings,
LBGT,
and the wokeism. They got all on that tangent, so we still haven't addressed the problem with the Jabbars of the world, the Army soldier, and everything. Well, we got to run, Chad. Thank you so much. Next week we'll be together at the inauguration in D.C. for the week. Tomorrow, Colonel Kirk Slichter, we're going to talk about the fires. He lives in Southern California, and we're going to talk about how the National Guard should be being used and all of the actions that are going on out there. And, of course, we'll do some speculation about the cause of those fires on the Rob Maness Show at Truth Thursday.